Let's bring in former FEMA Director Michael Brown. Sir, it is great to see you. We're getting disturbing new reports about what's going on with FEMA aid. According to a new whistleblower report sent to Congressman Matt Gaetz, FEMA allegedly misappropriated funds in the wake of Helene, withheld pre-disaster aid, all while first responders and service members were left waiting in hotels without deployment orders. And of course, this comes just days after DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said FEMA does not have enough funds to make it through the rest of hurricane season. And DHS records on their own website show they spent all that money on illegal aliens. Sir, your reaction to the current state of affairs?
Well, let's first point out that FEMA is never going to run out of money because FEMA has 536 advocates. Well, I say 536 because I was going to include the president until I heard your report. Maybe I shouldn't include the president. FEMA has 535 advocates that will make sure that the disaster relief fund has enough money in it. They always do, they always have, and that's the 435 members of the House and the 100 members of the Senate. They will eventually appropriate money. But let's not let that take away from the fact that FEMA has the disaster relief fund tends to be used as a slush fund to do stupid things like provide money through that for illegal alien housing. And the problem is, whether that money is going to be replenished or not, the optics are horrible. That's mission creep beyond anything I could have ever imagined in the almost, 20 years now since I left FEMA. There were times once FEMA got moved into the Department of Homeland Security that I was constantly bombarded. Well, can't we use the disaster relief fund for this or for that? And I always had to push back and say, no, that's really the savings account that we have so that we can pay not just for ongoing disasters, because there's always an ongoing disaster, but for any new disaster that might occur. And so I think, where's the FEMA director been? Where's Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security, been? They're nowhere to be seen. And so when they're not out communicating about what they're doing, and on top of that, the president is saying, we have nothing else to give, then whatever's the truth or not true about temporary flight restrictions or not enough money or we're doing this or doing that, people are left to their own imagination. And my imagination is you must not be doing anything because you're not out there bragging about what you are doing.
Yes, Congresswoman Kat Cammack confirming that there is a temporary flight restriction over North Carolina, which is leaving many people scratching their heads as to why, because of the lackluster federal response a lot of American citizens in the private sector. I beg your pardon, sir?
What really drives me crazy about the flight restrictions are, we put flight restrictions over New Orleans simply because we had anywhere between 300 and 500 military aircraft in the air rescuing people off rooftops. Well, if we have a flight restriction in North Carolina, where's the 101st Airborne? Where's the 102nd? Where's the 82nd? Where's all this military aircraft that would require a temporary flight restriction? I don't see it. Nobody can explain it to me. So why is it there? I think it's simply because they don't want to be shown up by private citizens doing what they should be doing.
Amen to that, sir. I think it's precisely what's happened, and how hypocritical of a Democrat Party who blasted you and former President Bush over your handling of Katrina, and look at what they're doing and how quiet and silently they sit right now when their political party is completely screwing this one up. Meantime, sir, there are questions about why the National Guard is not being deployed. There are reported 1,000 active duty troops from Fort Liberty waiting to deploy to North Carolina, which is one of the hardest hit states. Here is what the Pentagon, when asked why this is not happening, why they said it's not. Listen.
I think they're certainly ready to go. They've been authorized. It's more a matter of making sure that the state and FEMA are ready to knit them into the structure that's in place. The last thing you want to do is have a bunch of people show up and kind of, exacerbate the system even more. They're authorized, they're ready to go, but it is ultimately the state's call on when and how they are moved into the state.
Right. The governor's call. Why would a Democrat governor of North Carolina be dragging his feet on this one, sir, do you think?
I don't think people realize how devastating of a statement that is that she made, because what she said is actually true. If they have however many troops it is that are ready to move, You know what they're waiting on? They're waiting on what's called a mission assignment. And the mission assignment is where FEMA says to DOD, we need X number of troops, Blackhawks, Chinooks, whatever the DOD personnel and equipment is. And that mission assignment is simply a piece of paper that says, go here, 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 and here. What she is admitting to is my concern, and that is FEMA hasn't asked for it. And if FEMA hasn't asked for it, then who's in charge and what are they doing?
Good grief. Last thing I have for you, sir. Joe Biden has no idea, apparently, what's going on. Listen to his response when a reporter tried to get an update on the relief efforts. Listen.
What do the states in the storm zone need, Mr. President?
Okay.
What do the states in the storm zone, what do they need after what you saw today?
Oh, in the storm zone.
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering what storm they're talking about. They're getting everything they need. And they're very happy across the board.
He didn't know what storm they were talking about. Mr. Brown, your reaction?
And he had just come from that storm. So if you give him the benefit of the doubt that he really is demented enough that he doesn't remember where he was, that's pretty scary for the country in terms of our national security. But second of all, if he really did not know what storm he came from, he's not paying attention. And again, who's in charge? Where are the mission assignments? Where's the allocation of the resources? And to say that we've given everything that we can give is simply not true, because I don't see everything that I used being used currently. And if that's the case, what are they doing?